What I'm using.
No, I just
Oh,
need it for a second. Georgianne's card came in. The office has a 7, the address that is no good for 7 years.
well, we just saw her last night. Asked
I
about it.
know, but I didn't get the card until this afternoon, so I walked over and gave it to her.
Oh, there you go.
She said that's He's too much. Yeah, I got here.
Good evening, it's 6:30 PM on Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, and we are here at the clubhouse located at 4801 Lakeside Club Boulevard for the monthly Pine Ridge at Fort Mike Condo Association Board of Directors meeting. Before we begin tonight by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to take a moment to honor the memory of Jim Flynn, who recently passed away, kind of unexpectedly. Most of you, or some of you, will remember him as the clean joke teller who could go on and on for hours, whether it was at pickleball or bags, shuffleboard. He was a very good friend and will be dearly missed by all. We have a moment of silence. Thank you. Jim was a minor for a very, very long time. Now let's all please stand together and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michelle, would you please call roll?
Buck Iceler. Here. Tom Trino.
Here.
Bob Coles.
Here.
Bill England.
Here.
Michelle Camp. Here. John Mount. And Andy Slevin is out. Absent.
Was the meeting properly noted?
Yes.
Thank you. Next is our open forum. Eric, do we have anybody signed up tonight?
Marge, did you?
Yes. First of all, look around and see if Jack's here. He's not. Okay, good. The platform that used to be out in the middle of the lake and all the birds are on, it's now all the way down at the end and around the corner. Can we get it moved up here?
We're gonna try to get our lake guy to pull it out into the middle of the lake and then we'll anchor it hopefully
Okay.
better. But Hurricane Helene moved it.
I
Yeah.
expected it.
Fountain. Our fountain's not working.
The fountains are gonna have to be repaired too. There's a lot of stuff with the hurricane, minor stuff, electrical stuff, and there's surges. But let's not have talking from the audience, all right?
Yeah, I went and looked at that dock to make sure that it wasn't gonna get damaged, because it did blow loose in the middle of that storm. Since then, I was unable to find anybody willing to swim it back out to the lake and tie it back down. So Eric will get that place back by our lake monitoring crew. Who else do we have?
That's it.
Really? It's a disappointment, but I'm good with it.
Means you're doing a good job.
Yeah, we have an October surprise. And it's not our insurance adjuster that's gonna speak right now. He's gonna give us a update on the progress standing of our additional claim for that hurricane that we had, and what it's been, 2 years now, yeah. But you all, you watch the news and you read stuff, so I imagine you've heard bits and pieces, but we wanted you to hear it from the horse's mouth, as you might have heard before. So with no further ado, Eric?
This is Blake Day. He's the owner of Day Adjusting Services, very big adjuster in town. He's our public adjuster. Give an update, Blake, on where everything is.
Yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. Give everybody an update and kind of what's going on. So I'm
You
Blake
may want to
Day.
give a little background too.
Yeah, I'll give you guys kind of a background of everything that's going on. So my name is Blake, owner of Day Adjusting Consulting. Been in the industry for 16 years, all here in Florida. Basically my entire adult life. I get some gray hair, so I'm starting to fit in a little bit. Been in the industry for a while and spent 10 years working for insurance companies such as Heritage, which insures this property and many others. About 6 years ago, Father and I started a company where we now represent policyholders having issues with their insurance company. Prior to Hurricane Irma, that was not a big industry. Insurance companies were pretty straightforward. You have a claim, you pay it, much like you see on a commercial, you know, you're in good hands or like a good neighbor. After Hurricane Irma, a lot of things changed here in the state of Florida. Mainly, a lot of these insurance companies are no longer mutual companies owned just by the policyholders. They have investors now. And at the end of the day, their goal is to make a profit. You know, so we always joke that they're really good about taking our premiums, but they're not the greatest at paying them back out. Since Hurricane Ian, we've represented a little over 50 homeowners associations here in Lee County and a few that were in Collier County as well from Ian that came through. Unfortunately, you were one of two that we have that have not settled yet. The other one is a property that's several buildings, like I think it's about 70 or so buildings, and it is also insured by Heritage Insurance. I don't know how much you guys have been watching the news of what's going on with Heritage. They are currently under a criminal investigation. 60 Minutes did a special about them, and you can type in 60 Minutes Heritage and Google it tonight. Unfortunately, a lot of their adjusters submitted reports that Heritage was altering and sending not true reports back to homeowners, HOAs, commercial properties. This potentially could have been one of those because as I've been working with Heritage Insurance, a lot of things have not been quite adding up. What we were able to do about 11 weeks ago, we finally had Heritage grant us permission to have an independent engineer out of Tampa come out and do an inspection on all of the properties. So we were out here for probably 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. You probably saw some of us walking around with teams of people meeting with this engineer on all the properties. We were told we would have the report back in 4 to 6 weeks, and it has been 11 weeks. We're still trying to get to the bottom of where this report is.
And Blake, just after we talked on the phone, I gave that engineering firm a call. It's called the front desk. And I said, with Pine Ridge and Fort Myers, we want to check the status of our inspection report. And she said, normally they're back within 30 days. And I said, it's been like 2.5 months. And she looked into it and she said that we are on an advanced delay or something like that. Some kind of term like that.
Yeah,
The engineer is supposed to call one of us tomorrow. So we'll
yeah,
see.
and after we got off the phone, I called the engineer again. Up until about 3 weeks ago, he was working with us saying, oh, we're gonna have the report right away, in the next day or so. Well, it never happened, and he stopped answering his phone. So then we started working with a desk adjuster named Pam Vetty over at Heritage Insurance, who was the desk adjuster assigned to this claim. On Friday, we told her this meeting was coming up. We needed answers. We were demanding answers. And shockingly, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We have called several times each day and now cannot get a return phone call. So we are trying to figure out what the status is of the claim. We have different avenues we can go. I mean, Heritage has already had to pay $1 million fine to the state, and they're already under a criminal investigation. I know Eric and I have talked soon. We'll probably start filing complaints with the Department of Financial Services so they can open an investigation potentially into this claim.
And that's one of the things that I asked the engineering firm, because they're supposed to be independent, but obviously they're hired and paid for by Heritage. Is the reason why it's being held up payment, right? Did Heritage not pay them for the report? And they said, no, they wouldn't have started unless they got paid. So that's,
So supposedly they have got paid, or at least a down payment.
yeah, retaining.
Yeah, a retainer fee of some kind. So kind of steps of where we go from now is, we're gonna keep pushing them for the report. If it gets to the beginning of November, if we have to file complaints with the states, they can open yet another investigation into Heritage, of which they have hundreds. We're trying to play a little bit of good cop, bad cop right now. We're trying to work, as the desk adjuster that I'm working with is actually great to work with, and she would like to resolve our claim, supposedly, as soon as they get the engineer's report. So next step is get the engineer's report. Once we see it, it's going to be a 1,000-page report, because they go into in-depth on the roofs, windows, any kind of gutter fascia, all the damage you guys had. We went through building to building. We have all the invoices of everything you guys have done, plus the things that obviously haven't been done yet. They will go through that engineer's report. We should get a copy of it, and from there, they should give what they call a supplement, or an updated estimate as far as damages. Myself and Jacob Lupton was the two of the adjusters that were out here meeting with the engineer. The engineer seemed to agree with us on a majority of the roofs need replaced. Even roofs that from the ground don't look like they have a lot of damage. They had flying debris from neighboring property shingles hitting them and scuffing them and taking little chunks out of them. And he seemed to mark all of those damages. Now, once that report gets to Heritage, this is where Heritage is under investigation. A lot of the reports from their engineers that they've received.
I'll send out that link to everybody.
Yeah.
They're basically doing a pretty serious fraud. So
Yeah.
I'll send that link out to everybody to watch.
We're hoping now that they're in quite a bit of trouble, and CBS and 60 Minutes are pressing them pretty hard, that when they get this report, they'll do the right thing, which is pay off of it, and we can negotiate and try to get this claim wrapped up. Worst case is they don't, and they potentially go out of business at some point this year. So, good and bad to that. I don't mind if they go out of business, because what happens is the claim then goes to the state. It's FIGA, Florida Insurance Guarantors Association.
That's one of the reasons why we're with Heritage, this wonderful company, Heritage. There were only two admitted carriers, Heritage and American Coastal. We used to have American Coastal, now we have Heritage. But if they go belly up, those are the only two admitted carriers that would
Backed by
insure
FIGA.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we're with them.
I say the good thing, but so I've worked hundreds and hundreds of claims, if not thousands, with FIGA. Louisiana also has LIGA, Louisiana Insurance Guarantors Association. I actually do some contract work with LIGA in the state of Louisiana, where they need help with their claims. We have some adjusters we send from Florida to there. So I actually work close with the state of Louisiana and Florida. So if it goes to the state of Florida, the good thing is there's going to be no fraud. The state is looking to pay the claim. They want to make sure homeowners, property owners are properly indemnified. The only problem if it goes to FIGA is the delay. Because you would have to keep in mind, if Heritage goes under, that's thousands of claims that goes to the state. And the state has a core of maybe 7 or 8 full-time employees that handle this type of work, and they're going to have to handle thousands of claims. There would be a delay, but the good thing is the claim would get paid, we would get a settlement. That way, work can begin, and the nightmare of this Hurricane Ian can finally be over. So it's one of two ways this could go. One is Heritage comes to us and we're able to get a settlement. When this engineer report comes in, we're able to negotiate, figure out a number that works so we can get all the buildings taken care of. Worst case, it drags on and they go out of business, and we have to wait a few months for the state to officially take the claim over. Then we're able to work on the claim directly with the state and get a settlement. So one way or another, it will get done. But unfortunately, Heritage Insurance has been a little difficult to work with for a lot of people.
Blake, will you talk about the process if we go ahead and proceed with some of this work that needs to be done before this whole thing plays out?
Yeah, so
Now that they've done their inspections?
yeah, what we could do, roofs that need to be done immediately. Some of the worst condition ones that are having leaking issues and other problems. There is the potential to go ahead and start some of that work. What we would have to do is notify Heritage Insurance. I always give them 14 days, but to be safe, this is a big property. I would say we give them a 30-day notice to say, hey, in 30 days, we're going to start working on some buildings. If there's any last inspections that you want done, come out and get them done. Because the problem is if we don't notify them, can they say under the terms of the policy that we tampered with the evidence? They could, it's a long shot, but they could, but at least if we notify them and give them a set amount of days that they have to come out and look at the properties, we're giving them that amount of time. And then if you guys need to pull from reserve to start doing the work, what we would do is save those invoices for any of the properties that have work done. And then it's what they call cost incurred. You've now incurred the cost. It's not an estimate, it's an actual fixed cost that you had to pay for a roof, or anything else that has to be done. And then that's what we would be submitting to Heritage, or if they were to go belly up, that's what we would be submitting to the state for reimbursement. So there is ways that we can potentially get some of the work going. I know Eric and I have talked about really pushing them up until November, start to file complaints, and then if we have to go the route of notifying them.
Ideally, settling first before you start paying out, so that they can't quantify how much everything is.
Yeah, a lot of times it's the better way to go if you can get a settlement in a perfect world. I know Heritage is not making it a perfect world for any of us right now. But my hope is they're under so much pressure right now from the state of Florida, from Ron DeSantis, from 60 Minutes News, that they're done playing games and they're looking to pay out. I think the last thing they want is a criminal investigation and any of their board of directors to end up in jail. I would hope they're at the point now.
We should have Ron DeSantis come here and see all the senior citizens that he's making leave, you know?
If you want to see them tomorrow morning,
All these people pay taxes their whole lives, insurance their whole lives, and they finally need it. And
I'm actually, so I got invited, Ron DeSantis is speaking tomorrow morning in downtown Fort Myers.
okay.
So I actually got invited to come and get 2 or 3 minutes with him supposedly after his speech. And trust me, insurance is the only thing I'm going to be talking about. So I don't have a lot of good things to say about insurance companies right
Ask
now.
him if he's interested in the PR, that, you know, you see a lot of people load this place up, you get a lot of good press, you know?
And I completely agree. But that unfortunately is the current state of the insurance claim. Is the only claims that we have open as a company left over from Hurricane Ian are 2 very large Heritage claims. And unfortunately, you know, the situation both you and the other associations we have are in right now is the claim hasn't been paid and we need to be paid. So we'll keep working on this. If it gets to November, we'll start filing the complaints and do everything we can.
The outcome that you foresee is that we're gonna get a substantial settlement?
Yeah.
Regardless of the process, or do you see, what are the possible outcomes?
We should, do you want me to talk about just the estimate or anything?
Yeah, we talked about that a lot.
So the estimate that we have wrote for all of the buildings, and I'll give you a little bit of a background. The estimating program we use is called Xactimate. It is an industry standard program that every insurance company in the state of Florida uses. So they set the prices based on what the average general contractor or roofer or gutter company charges in the database. And it's almost like the stock market because month to month, those prices go up and down depending if there's natural disaster, supply and demand, labor shortages. So right now, the current value of the claim for all the damages is right about 6.7 million in damages. Now, here's one thing to keep in mind is this, the insurance policy that's on this property is there's RCV and ACV, and this is what they call an ACV policy, actual cash value. An example of that is on some properties, if you have replacement costs on a standard home, your roof blows off or a window blows out, the insurance company owes you whatever it's going to cost to put that roof on today. On an ACV policy, it's similar to a vehicle. If you have a 2014 Toyota that crashes, they owe you for a 2014 Toyota. That's the policy that's on these properties, because it's probably about all you could get with the age of the property.
It's interesting, I was gonna ask you, at the time, we'd always had RCV replacement costs. Up until that year, they wouldn't offer it to us, only actual cash value. Now, subsequently, we renewed, they're giving us replacement costs.
That's convenient.
So
what?
No, but I mean, is that, we're gonna have to replace it and let's just give it to them? I mean, what is that? That stuck out in my mind, you know?
Here's one important thing is when we write the estimates in that computer program, I don't like to say the word fluff, but we try to get that number as big as we can, and here's why. When they apply that ACV, that non-recoverable depreciation, you would call it, our goal is to be able to settle this, you know, for half of our amount, because they're going to try to depreciate you about half. So in reality, if they're going to depreciate us half that amount, if we could land in the 3 million range before any deductible or anything's applied, that would be a pretty decent settlement, because then you'd be able to bid it out to different roofing companies. They'd come in competitively, and you guys would end up in a pretty good spot. So, you know, anytime we're in negotiations, we want to start at the highest possible leverage point we can, and then let them talk us down from there.
And what Blake is saying, that Xactimate program that they all use has numbers programmed into it that the roofing's gonna cost X, Y, Z. And then what you can actually negotiate with a local roofing company or that is something different.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's a spread there where the insured for once comes out ahead.
Yeah, so the numbers we're negotiating off of are gonna be Hurricane Ian numbers, because that's when this event happened. And the numbers back then were a lot higher than they are now, but they owe you for when the event actually happened, which after Hurricane Ian, we were still having problems with shortages of materials, labor, everything else from COVID we're on the tail end of that. So we're negotiating from a high leverage point, which is good. And now roofing pricing has come quite a bit down. So we're still gonna negotiate off of that computer program. That way we have a very large buffer when negotiations start. But the first key before we even start the negotiations and start figuring out numbers with the board and where do we go is we gotta get that engineer's report, and we gotta get Heritage to be honest. And that's what Eric and I are working diligently on now.
So Blake, it sounds like this is similar to what we referred to on auto claim as betterment, where, for example, your tires also ruined in the collision, they're gonna deduct what they feel was the use that you got out of the tire before it was damaged.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, so what they'll say is these roofs are probably, some of them, not all, but yeah, because I have all the dates of all the different roofs, but some of the older roofs they'll say we're probably halfway through life expectancy. Some they'll say maybe we're 20% through life expectancy. Some they'll say we lost no life expectancy because they're so new.
And that's the interesting thing about the actual cash value policy is the shingles are all 30 and 40-year shingles that only last 15 to 20 years in Florida. So you're gonna get, and then they can't depreciate the labor, correct?
They can't depreciate
So
labor.
only the materials are the,
And the good thing is, if on the shingles, if they were 40-year or 30-year shingles from the manufacturer, even though in Florida you only get 15 years, they're still going to use that 30 or 40-year manufacturer, whatever their number was. So that'll help us quite a bit. Is even though some of these roofs might be older, we're still going to be able to use, if it was a 30-year or a 40-year shingle, that's the number they're going to depreciate from, not what they last in Florida. It's kind of just a flat base to go off of. I know that was a lot of information.
so there's no scenario though where you don't see us settling for a substantial.
The air conditioner on. The air conditioner, now turn it on. I don't know how to do it.
No, under no circumstance do I see any way where the insurance company can get out of any kind of a substantial settlement at
If you
all.
put the fans on, it'll make a difference.
Put the fans on.
Will that be minus the money we paid initially from them also?
Yeah, so what they would do is any prior payment they would take out of the settlement, which I know wasn't a big number to you guys, and then they would apply the deductible as well. And that's one thing, as they start tossing us numbers, they're gonna give us basically spreadsheets that show what they're paying for the whole claim, minus prior payments, minus deductible, so you'll be able to see all those numbers.
The initial estimate, Blake does it in the same software as the initial estimate. The first one was so screwed up, and I can't see how it wouldn't have been altered afterwards because. It was
Yeah, I'll give you an example of how bad the Heritage estimate was. There were a couple properties that had very little to no damage that we got on the roof, and Heritage had estimated for the roof to be replaced, which is to our benefit, and then to also pull a tree off the roof. And we would ask the person living in that property, was there ever a tree in this roof? No, there's not even a tree near my property. Heritage, they were copying, pasting, somebody ran through the estimate, there were probably changes made. There were things that they said that homes had that they absolutely didn't have, measurements weren't even close.
It was right at the end of last year. I think it was December 29th or 30th. They called me to actually finalize it. So it was almost like, get this off my desk by the end of the year.
I thought the addresses were wrong when Eric gave them to me, because we started going around property to property, looking at Heritage's estimate, trying to match them up with what needs done, and none of it made any sense to us. And I will say, the engineer that came out actually agreed. He's like, this is garbage. He said, we're gonna have to start from scratch on this, which I don't know how long it's taken. I mean, it's 11 weeks. I didn't think scratch was gonna take that long. But he did say, he's like, this was a very poorly wrote estimate. None of it makes sense to us either. So midway through our inspections here, he basically tossed it off to the side, and we just went through building to building, and we tried to get it right. But again, where's that engineer's report?
You should just go off your estimate.
That's what I told him.
You did it before.
And we gave the engineer a copy of our estimate, and we said, we let the engineer know, not only do we have the estimate, But in the order of the estimate from line item 1 to line item 10,000, because these estimates are super detailed, we have a photo that corresponds with the damage on every property. So I told the engineer, you can go through our photo report, you can go through every line item in this estimate, and we're gonna have the corresponding, if it's a piece of fascia, here's that piece of fascia in a photo. So we put together a very detailed, what we consider a pretty bulletproof report. But now the ball's in Heritage's hands, and we're gonna see if they do the right thing. Eric, can you think of anything else?
Now, do any of the board members have any questions? Tom, do you have any questions for Blake? Tom usually has a question, that's good job.
I didn't get time to make all this.
You want to offer any questions?
Yeah,
We can only take one or two, but does anyone in the audience have a question that I can ask while Blake's here? Or Vicky?
you have to come up and, let us know if you're Vicky or not. And get to the mic.
Vicki Franzen, 4612 Blackberry. What if they're low, if they give us a low ball?
So with insurance claims, people always ask me that question, and I'll give you a perfect example. So I have State Farm on my own property. Up in Tennessee, I had a cabin that pipe burst this past winter, and same thing, they refused to settle for the $100,000 that I paid the contractor to fix everything. They only want to give me $60,000. The claim is only over when the policyholder says it's over. For me, I told State Farm, prep for trial. I want my pound of flesh, and I want every dollar. I've been paying premiums for 16 years in my little hunting cabin, and I want it to be paid like it should be. You guys are in that same position where the claim only settles when you want it to settle. Now, if it goes to FIGA, I haven't had a case. We've handled 15,000+ claims in Florida over the years. We've never had a case with FIGA that actually goes to a trial because the state wants to settle your claim. Now, if it's Heritage on the other end, I've still never had a case with Heritage go to trial. Normally what they would do in the past is they would go up until about a month before trial and just settle the claim. Because the last thing they want to do is have a jury of their peers, and the jury of their peers are going to be you, and everybody's mad as heck at them right now. So I think they'll settle. They always start low on negotiations. They're going to throw out a low number from there, and we counter back and forth, and we just draw a line in the sand. We say, look, these are the hard numbers. This is what this association needs to get back in and be made whole, and we're going to stick to it.
What happens if they bail it out?
Well, and if they bail it out, the state takes over.
Yeah, I would much rather.
So I mean, who do we use for insurance from after that?
There's new companies coming in now, yeah, they changed some of the laws, there's new companies. The other recourse is going ahead and filing a lawsuit, like Blake said, and, the lawsuit against, a bunch of regular people against an insurance company that's ripping them off, in front of a jury. I guess how that usually goes, so they're back in. We don't even go to trial.
Heritage would never let this case go to trial. They do not want the press. They're in a world of hurt the way it is. That's why I feel confident if Heritage stays in business, we'll get a settlement with them because they don't want to push it that far. Now, will we have to do a little bit of posturing and say, oh, we're willing to take it that far? We might, we might, send in a letter from an attorney and say, hey, we're willing to take it all the way, just have them shaking their boots. But this would be a really bad case for them to take to trial. It wouldn't end up well for them. And if they do